it started earlier on when I started skydiving. I was kind of like living that dirtbag lifestyle. I was living in like the back of the truck and the trailer and tents. And I think I had a few really, really low moments during those years. I mean, I would question everything. Like, why am I doing this? Especially when it rained. My trailer leaked in like 30 different places. That was very depressing. It put me into a very low place. I would have like buckets everywhere, garbage cans, like all just collecting water. I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? I kept reminding myself, like, this is what you wanted to do. This was the dream. Like, you're chasing what you want to do. Like, it'll be sunny tomorrow and you'll be back in the sky. You'll be jumping. Like, just keep moving forward. And I think that was the biggest thing that I learned. Early days of like living away from home and really having that kind of like life experience of just being out there on my own. And I really learned through those moments, like, just keep pushing forward.
All right, I'm here with Jeff Provenzano. I got it right. He told me right in the pregame, like 1 minute ago. Provenzano. That's a really, it's a pretty name. So now let's go back to the origin of things, because we want to get into skydiving, we want to, get into, Red Bull, we want to get into what you do, but I want to know the origin of things. I want to know how this all got started. When did you first have the notion? Were you the guy on the dirt bike, BMX? I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I always kind of grew up just gravitating towards adventurous things. Climbing out of the crib probably began there.
Okay.
Just doing all those things as a kid. Climbing trees, skateboarding as a kid. And I saw skydiving in a movie. It was Point Break, the original Point Break. And I was a little bit too young still to make a jump, but that's kind of what planted the seed in my head. And I would periodically talk about when I turn 18, that's what I'm going to go do. And that was ever since I saw that movie for like the next 4 years, I'd kind of mention it from time to time. That I just was counting down the days until I turned 18.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because as soon as you logged on, I mean, those who can't see Jeff, he looks like John Philbin, who's in Point Break, character actor. We just talked to him a couple weeks ago. And do you know who John Philbin is? He's a surfer. He's like, you know him if you saw him. He was in Tombstone. Anyways, you look like you could be brothers. So,
he's stunt double for skydiving.
Okay, all right, there you go. Yeah, well, yeah. So now, how did you get into that? How did you segue into that?
Into
being a stunt double.
Oh, wow. So fast forward, I had been skydiving for a bunch of years, and there was this guy out there, his name's Joe Jennings, and he was kind of like one of like 2 or 3 dudes out there that was, world, that was a full-time skydiver doing all the aerial stunt work for Hollywood. And I admired him. And the day I met him, I basically was like, hey, you're awesome. One day I want to, come work for you. And I showed him a bunch of the stuff and stunts that I was just kind of doing on my own and just having fun with skydiving, but just pushing the limits and doing cool things, thinking like, this should be in a movie, or this stunt should be in a movie. And that was it. I mean, a few years later, he basically called me up and was like, hey, I got this job and I think you're kind of the perfect fit for it. Do you want to do it? And thanks to Joe. I mean, he got my foot in the door with the Hollywood world. And, I got my SAG card, like basically through the first few jobs I did with him. And yeah, it was kind of a little bit of luck, but I kind of manifested that and just kind of went after it and just, chased him down and found him.
So now we go back. It's like a Tarantino interview. We're going back and forth in time. So now when you decide that's what I want to do is see the movie. Now, what's the incipient stages of your journey? Like, what do you start to do towards getting that? What are the steps that you take to start to make that career happen?
Well, I mean, I think it was just my nature always to kind of just be looking how to just want something better than I did the last time. So I was just kind of trying to one up everything, and just the nature of the sport of skydiving. I mean, it's a sport that rides a fine line between, sport and everyday stunts. So there's just like it's a very fine line between the two at times, I think.
I was friends with a guy named Rob Harris in the early 90s, and he was, Rob Harris?
Yeah, funny thing. So Joe was Rob's camera guy in competition world. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I never knew Rob. He's legend, and I just kind of missed him in the sport, in the years of sport. I was still kind of I was packing parachutes and filming tandems still when he was kind of dominating and doing his thing in the world of sport.
For those that don't know, Rob was a DJ in LA, and I know him through nightclubs, but he also was he was a snowboarder, sky snowboarder. What do they call sky snowboarders?
Sky surfing, yeah.
Sky surfing. He was a sky surfer. And he was doing a Mountain Dew commercial, and his first shoot opened, but his secondary shoot opened a little late, and he didn't make it. And he was the sweetest guy, greatest guy. That was his best attribute. As good as he was just like the nicest guy you could ever meet. So, when you were doing all this stuff, was that part of your, how did you navigate through the fear and the dynamics of the psychology of it all?
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of baby steps, just keep putting one foot forward. And, there's definitely times where, it was just like, what am I getting myself into? And, just reminding myself that like, ultimately this is what I want to do. This was the goal, and just keep putting one foot forward. And, kind of have a little bit of some blind faith at times, but just know, like, hey, I've been training for this my whole life up until that, whatever point that was. And I've got the skills for this. I can do this. And, just trust a little bit and believe in yourself. And, but sometimes, for sure. I mean, the way you worded that, it kind of like gave me a flashback of those moments of just like, oh my God, what am I doing right now? Like, what have I gotten myself into? And sometimes you just kind of have to sometimes you just have to send it.
Right. And I know mindset is everything in every sport or business or anything, but it's like, what would you say were some of your bullet points on like the most challenging moments, climbing up?
I'm honestly, the bullet points were just, I feel like they happened earlier on in the career, and it wasn't really necessarily like related to the stunts themselves, but more the lifestyle that I was living, trying to pursue this dream of skydiving. And I mean, like, I think those were some of the more difficult moments of my life, just being, super. And I know it sounds crazy because skydiving is such as like, I mean, who skydives? Like you have to have all this money to skydive, but so many skydivers don't, right? Like it's like that thing, right? You fall into that. And I was one of those guys. And I mean, I was just choosing this life to kind of live like a total dirtbag. I mean, the tent, the living in the back of my truck for years, and living in a trailer that was like a 30-year-old trailer that would just leak every time it rained in like 30 different places. I would just have pots and pans all in buckets and garbage cans, collecting all this water, and like a plastic thing over like my TV. Just, I had like, a whole TV, a regular TV, no cable or anything. Just would watch like The Simpsons or whatever, what was on like 6 p.m. every night. But I think those really all began way earlier than, everything that you're probably thinking, those like actual stunt moments, or, those, like it started earlier on when I started skydiving, and I was kind of like living that dirtbag lifestyle. I was living in like the back of the truck and the trailer and tents. And I think I had a few really, really low moments during those years. Well, not that I think, I know I had some very low moments where I would question everything. Like, why am I doing this? What am I, especially when it rained. My trailer my trailer leaked in like 30 different places every time it rained. And that was kind of just depressing to me. That was very depressing. It would put me into a very low place. I would have like buckets everywhere, garbage cans, like all just collecting water. And I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? And I kept reminding myself like, this is what you wanted to do. This was the dream. Like you're chasing what you want to do. Like it'll be sunny tomorrow and you'll be back in the sky. You'll be jumping, like just keep moving forward. And I think that was the biggest thing that I learned earlier on was just, that was the early days of like living away from home and really having that kind of like life experience of just being out there on my own. And
what about
the world wasn't being that nice to me all that time. And I really learned through those moments, like just keep pushing forward.
What about technique? Like, I mean, cause like that's what I think so many people are thinking, like, what bullet points, like what milestones do you need to kind of like, kind of meet to like get better and better?
Well, in skydiving in particular, I would say the big one was my parachute, like flying and landing the parachute in the canopy and just getting very proficient at that. That's the part that people can see too. And that's the ending. You can see it, you can watch it live. I mean, the rest of it, it's like, if you're looking from the ground, you're a little dot, right? Or you're watching a video, which is, you're so disconnected. Like whenever I show people skydiving videos, they're just kind of like, they don't understand what's going on. Just people floating around, like, whatever, you're crazy, like they just don't even get it. But when you come in and land a parachute right in front of them, they're like, whoa, that's the impressive part, right? They see you just drop out of the sky. Next thing you know, they're like, you're there in front of them. And they're just like, that's kind of the mind. So I think the big key point was really, really just getting good at that, right? Like dialing that in and getting good. And that was funny that I had a knack for that. Like that was very, in all the disciplines in skydiving, swooping and canopy flying, canopy piloting was the one that I was more natural at. I picked it up really quick. I had 1,000 jumps, and I remember people thinking I had like 5,000 or 6,000 jumps. So
muscle memory.
The
reps. I mean, getting used to the rhythm and the tactile moments that you need to be in tune with. Say, oh, now I need to make this little paradigm shift in this movement here and here to make that little thing happen the right way.
Yeah, and it was a vehicle too. It was like everything I had done before, like you're like on a skateboard or a snowboard or a bike. And this was like, you're attached to this parachute. Yeah. So it was something that you were I was maneuvering, and I connected to that too. So yeah, the reps counted, but it also helped that there was this like natural talent to connecting with the parachute part of it. Versus like free fall and flying your body, which was also, I love it. And that's my favorite part too. But like I said, people can't relate to that part anyway. So when they saw my landings, they were like, oh, wow, this guy's good. He could do this. And everyone assumed I had way more experience than I actually did because I could fly my parachute really well and land on the X.
Meet the Bolo Pack, the ultimate travel companion that transforms into a hammock, a pop-up tent, and even a cooler. Whether you're hiking, camping, or chilling at the beach, the Bolo Pack has you covered. First up, the Bolo Pack is a sleek, compact backpack, perfect for day trips or long adventures. Need a break? With a simple pull, the Bolo Pack transforms into a relaxing hammock, perfect for catching your breath during hikes. Planning to spend the night? The Bolo Pack also converts into a pop-up tent, giving you shelter wherever you go. And the best part? The Bolo Pack doubles as a cooler, keeping your food and drinks fresh for hours. Let me show you how easy it is to switch between modes. First, the hammock. Just a few simple steps, and you're ready to relax. Next, the pop-up tent for quick shelter setup. And finally, the cooler function, ensuring you stay refreshed on the go. From day hikes to weekend getaways, the Bolo Pack adapts to your needs. Whether you're chilling, camping, or keeping your snacks cool, ready to upgrade your travel game? Get your Bolo Pack today and take your adventures to the next level. Link in the description.
What was your most dangerous moment?
Oh my God. I mean, I have 22,000 jumps. It's hard to narrow that
Hard to
down.
pick one. Any one, two, or three that comes to mind?
Most dangerous moment. I mean, some of them are probably like within my first 100 jumps. Those were the most dangerous moments. Just having no clue what I was doing, and looking back at it and just being like, wow, how did I pull that one right out of my...
Is it usually when the ropes get tied up with each other? What do they call that? When the ropes get tied up with each other.
Just like line twists.
Line twists, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that usually?
Yeah, there's a lot of like malfunctions that are fixable, right? That you just learn to deal with and fix. As a student, they all seem like catastrophic, and you just want to cut your main parachute away and open the reserve because you don't know how to fix those things. But after you start to, you get a few jumps under your belt, there's a lot of these malfunctions that you can work through them. It's just like, you start to kick out of the line twist and you untwist them, or, there's a number of like other like minor malfunctions that can be fixed or adjusted, not like total catastrophic, like my parachute just blew up into two pieces and it can't, you can't fly that. Right. So, but usually most of them, 90% of them are always fixable.
So any moment in particular that comes to mind that was your most dangerous moments? What was it? What happened?
Honestly, it was like I said, it was within, the one that comes to mind is I had less than 100 jumps. I was jumping in Lebanon, Maine at Skydive, New England. And Skydive, New England is this very small airport surrounded by forest. I mean, it's just like miles and miles of forest in every direction. And it's really just like this cutout, like chunk of, land in the middle of this really dense forest. And I opened far, far away. I opened on the other side of the forest, like over this, it's like a mill, or it's like a lumber yard. And I remember I was looking at the airport and I only had 100 jumps. And in hindsight, I was like, oh, wait, there was a tailwind. I would have been fine. Like now I think about it and I was like, yeah, I could have totally flown all the way back to the airport. But in my mind, I'm looking at this forest and I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to make it past this forest. I'm going to land in the trees. So I decided to land in this small lumber yard. And on my approach or pattern that I was setting up and flying, and as I was descending, I put myself into a position where I had to do a very low 180 turn to land in like the only clear area. Uh-huh. If you turn too low, you end up like, you swing out horizontally from the parachute. And it takes the time and altitude for your body to actually swing underneath the wing and get underneath it safely. Yeah. Well, as you're like this, you're dropping out of the sky. Anyway, I ended up turning very low, and I just barely like digging my brakes as hard as I could. I barely swung under the canopy before I hit the ground horizontally, which, there's catastrophic, there's fatal injuries all the time. Not all the time, but I mean, that is a common way people get injured or die in the sport. And I mean, I was this close to, breaking both my legs or worse. And somehow I just pulled it off.
What was preventing you from hitting the X on that particular jump?
Well, I don't think I was that talented with it just yet. I was still like this for, I think it took around like 500 jumps is when things started to really click, But I think I was, I had a little luck in the beginning for sure in those first 100 jumps.
So like Red Bull, okay, that's like the pinnacle. That's like the best. I would actually say, doing stunt doubling and too, being, that's pretty damn cool too. But Red Bull's like huge though. I mean, that's like a lot of guys are like, yeah, man, I want to, be a Red Bull, athlete or this or that, Was that it for you too? And what was that like?
Oh, 100%. Oh, well, at first it wasn't. Because the Red Bull wasn't really what it was. And I mean, to me, the competition world was much bigger and I wanted to compete. And I had a few friends that joined the Red Bull team. And I was asked, hey, do you want to join it? And I actually was like, nah, I want to compete, like I wanted to do this other thing. So at first I was actually very focused in competition skydiving. And at that time, Red Bull was kind of interested in pulling us, a few of us out of the sport to start doing like Red Bull, like demo jumps and jumping into events and doing other like cool stuff. But this is all before the internet, before Instagram, before like people would see this. So it was like my friends that went and did that kind of like vanished from the scene of skydiving a little bit. It was like, and they were doing rad stuff. I knew it because they were telling me about it, but it was like, yeah, but I'm in the scene. Like, you're not in the skydiving scene anymore, man. You know, like I want to compete. Like this is where it's all at, right? This is like our scene. This is our group. This is our tribe over here. You're like lone wolfing it now. And so at first I kind of was like, nah. And then after a few years a few years went by, and I just got burnt out with the competition, the emotional roller coaster, win, lose, win, lose. You know, you can only win so many, and then you lose one, and then you're depressed, and then you win, and then you're happy. It's like I was over it. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of tired of this, and that's when I was like, you know what? It's time. I want to do that, and that was like also the time where things started to change. Right? Social media just started like getting bigger. You know, it was like Facebook, not like MySpace anymore. Right. You know, it was like things started changing, and Red Bull started changing too. And it was all at once. And I just remembered, I want that. I wanted that hat now. And I called them back up and I was like, hey, like I'm ready. Is it, are we good still? And they were like, yeah, we've been waiting. They were kind of waiting for me, and they said, yeah, we're waiting for you to call us back.
Is the money in Red Bull? I mean, that's the sustaining. Is that really, that's lucrative, right? Or what's the most lucrative vehicle that you've had in your journey?
It's really a combination of a lot of things. I think the most valuable thing Red Bull brought to me is really just like you were saying before, it's kind of, it makes everything creditable. It's like this, all of a sudden it's like, you got the hat on now, it opens other doors with a lot of other, job opportunities in business. Now, the Hollywood guys are like, we'll get the Red Bull guys. And, the military guys are like, well, let's get the Red Bull guys. The other brands, the clothing or the sunglass guys, they're all like, let's get the Red Bull guys. So I think that to me is probably, the priceless side of being affiliated with Red Bull. But yeah, I mean, I've created an entire career. I mean, I've been with Red Bull for 16, 17 years now.
Wow.
I mean, I know I'm getting close to 20 years. I mean, that's a career with the brand. I mean, I've been with Red Bull longer than their employees. I've gone through, I don't know how many managers, and there's very few people at the brand that have been there for that long. Where
are you at today? What's going on with your career right now? And what do you got, activities you got going on?
Well, I'm about to, this is going to be a busy year. I've got a couple really cool projects lined up actually through Red Bull, where there was a few that just kept getting delayed over the last few years, whether it being from permits or budgets or whatever. Now everything just seems to be happening all at once this year. So I'm really excited. I don't want to go into any specifics, but it's going to be keeping me, pretty busy, planning, organizing, training, just the whole 9 yards with it. Actually, tomorrow, I'm actually flying. I'm going to Argentina. We're doing a global camp. So Red Bull athletes, every Red Bull skydiver, base jumper, paraglider, hang gliding, basically every aviation athlete from in Red Bull, we're all gathering in Argentina and doing this big global camp, a global aviation camp, which is pretty awesome. We've done a couple of them already, and it's really cool just to kind of get together with, just different athletes from different nationalities and just kind of cross-pollinate, share ideas, do some jumps together, hang out, and just kind of mesh. a little bit. It's really cool. So this will be the third global camp that we're doing.
That sounds fun. What about long term? You plan out way in advance? Like what's the long term plan?
Well, long term. So yeah, the calendar only ever like goes out to like 3 or 4 months, maybe 6,
That's okay. Hey, yeah, you
Yeah.
don't have to plan out 10, 15 years ahead. But some,
Yeah.
I guess, is it a very Zen-like, plan, because you're jumping out of you have to be Zen-like if you're jumping out of a plane sometimes. But
Yeah, part of it is, I mean, part of it, you kind of have to go with the flow and just be flexible with like what comes up and just be fluid with it. But at the same time, I definitely have my goals and things I want to accomplish. Uh, well, with Red Bull, I know I just signed another contract with them, so I know, that's guaranteed for a few more years. I think it'll go way beyond that, to be honest. But other long-term goals too is just kind of starting my own company. And I've always looked at what other athletes do in other sports, kind of take that as like an example. And yeah, I'm just kind of building my own brand right now and building something within the skydiving community, but want to try to push it out of that too. So I'm in the early stages of that. And I've got a good team that I'm working with. I got some really great partners, some, very smart, talented people, and that have built, big brands in the past. So hopefully, we'll have some good momentum going into this one. And yeah, I mean, as far as the stunt world goes, that's out of everything I do, the thing with the most uncertainty is Hollywood. It's just, it's a tricky one. There's only so many aerial stunt jobs, and there's a large number of us always kind of like nipping at the heels of that. So
Tom Cruise doing his own shit.
Yeah, you just kind of keep fingers crossed and wait for like hopefully that stunt coordinator will call me. But there's only I don't live in Hollywood. I don't live in LA. I'm not really, driving it that hard. But nobody, that's just the tricky one. There's a little more uncertainty. Like, will I work in Hollywood again? I don't know. I never know. Every time I do a Hollywood job, I'm like, this could be the last one. And then, there's another one down the road. But how long will that train go for? I have no idea. That's the one that has the most uncertainty.
Well, that's fine because you're going to Argentina in a few weeks and you're going to have yourself another adventure, which is pretty damn cool. Tell everybody how they can find out more about you.
Oh man. I mean, just, I'm big on Instagram, and that's just it. Jeff Provenzano at Jeff Provenzano. And yeah, that's kind of like where you can follow me, follow my adventures. I do a lot of, stories also on there. So just the day to day, and it's mostly skydiving and a little bit of.
Who doesn't love skydiving videos on Instagram and TikTok? I mean, everybody does.
I also got like little critters that, make little appearances now and then. I'm surprised none of them actually beg to jump up on my lap.
What kind of animals over there?
Dogs. We got 3 of them. They're all little. Yeah. Actually, the little puppy last night, we had a little bit of a scare in the house last night.
How far are you from the city? You're like up in the country in New York? It looks like rural behind you.
The backyard. Yeah, we got a lot of trees in the backyard, but we're just 30 minutes out of New York City. So 30 minutes.
You think skydiver, you think, man, I live out in the desert, or I'm like, like I'm living there, out in the rural area.
I do. I'm split between here and Arizona. I have a house at Skydiver, Arizona. It's the largest skydiving facility in the world, just in between Phoenix and Tucson. Small town called Eloy, but the facility is called Skydive Arizona, and it's and that's home base. That's the stomping grounds, the training grounds, and I kind of bounce back and forth. I was just there last week for 2 weeks, so yeah, I'm there all the time. And yeah, you just
sounds like you're living the rock star lifestyle. I love it, man. You're jumping out of planes and you're going to Argentina and you're meeting your buddies out there and your guys are all, flying around in the sky. I love it. It's great. Thank you so much for sharing it. It was awesome.
Yeah, right on, Michael. Yeah, awesome. I'm happy to share.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to Bolotor.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.